There really is only one channel, and that's the Sushumna, okay? And there are three channels of energy that make up that Sushumna, right? And the chakras are where the two channels that move up in and out of the spine crisscross, right, and meet in the Sushumna, and that's what creates the chakras, right? And so what's happening is that through whatever particular breathing technique, specifically the double breath that Rudi gave us, is that we are at once bringing our awareness into the chakras, right? So that we can draw our awareness and the energy of that awareness down to the base of the spine, which is where the door into the Sushumna really exists, right? Even though we can feel the chakra, right, because the chakra is a grosser manifestation of the our energetic mechanism, right? So we can feel our heart chakra, right? We can feel the navel chakra, right? And so what we're doing is to bring the energy into those chakras, opening up. So we're creating, the first thing we're doing is creating buckets that we can start to collect some of our life force, some of our awareness, right, inside, right? So there are these reserve caves, right? Because most of our life force is extended outside, caught in objectivity, caught in externality, right? And so the first thing that we're doing, which is, we might say the most important thing we're doing, is beginning to bring our energy back inside. And so then we open our heart and we have some capacity, some place to store that energy, right? So that as we continue with our exercise, right, two things have happened. One is we've created an openness in ourselves. We've made contact with a higher organ of consciousness, the heart chakra, which automatically transforms our experience. We are no longer trying to feel through, perceive through, project from the limitation of the mind, right? And so we're collecting that energy, and the reason that Rudi gave the double breath as he did was to bring that energy inside, to expand the energy and the awareness that's available to us in the heart chakra, right? I've also said to you that in so many ways, that's where we start to feel God. We start to feel some different presence in ourselves. And by having that capacity, right, we're not struggling for 50 years of our meditation trying to feel something, right? We're automatically feeling it. It's palpable. This sense of openness, this sense of stillness, this sense of some simple joy, this sense of some detachment, right? Right. So that's kind of the awareness thing that's happening, right? And energetically what we're doing is beginning to strengthen the psychic system. We're beginning to create a structure of consciousness within ourselves, to recognize a structure of consciousness that can hold energy internalized. Because we know that typically we can't hold our energy inside. We get caught up in the stupidest things, a phone conversation over nonsense, and we somehow get all caught up in our own tension, right? So there's so many multiple levels of the use of that double breath, the use of our capacity to feel our heart, right? So that as soon as we, are engaged in some simple dynamic in life, and all of a sudden we start to get tense, we take a breath, right? And we can bring our attention back inside, right? and we're not creating fight with life, right? So in your meditation, then you've created this reserve in that sense, right? You've created this space of openness that from that place of openness, from that place of internalized awareness, you can continue to deepen that deeper internal awareness. So we're bringing the energy to the base of the spine, through the navel. Rudi talked about, bringing the awareness, holding the breath 10 seconds. You got to have a stopwatch, and then let it out for 4.5 seconds. Oh, there goes another stopwatch. It just makes you crazy, right? Right. So finally, ultimately, we're breathing into the navel, and what's really happening there is we are really expanding the core base of that capacity to be internalized, right? To be able to feel inside and to remain inside and to channel our energy so that we can then have enough energy to penetrate through the extraordinary density of our own consciousness, the extraordinary compactness and contraction of all our attentions, right? Right. Because without that capacity, without that jackhammer, right, we can't really drill through our own density. And so what we're attempting to in the down breath, right, is to get our life force back into the sushumna, back to the base of the spine where it can enter the sushumna and rise. And it will rise right back through the sushumna, you'll feel it expand in the base of the spine, you'll feel it in the navel, you'll feel the heart chakra, and it can rise through. Once the energy is now internalized within the sushumna, it can rise back through the heart and back through the center of the head, right, and out and above, right. It takes almost nobody can feel their heart and then move their energy straight from there through the center of the head and up. You might feel some sensation of energy, but understand it's not about some sensation of energy. Some awakening of Kundalini, something we're jerking around, all this energy is flying. This is nonsense. We are attempting to free our own life force. We are attempting to free that Kundalini Shakti that created us. It's not our Shakti. It is God's own power creating the individual. This is what Kundalini is. We are an individuated expression of that divine power, right? We're not trying to fix ourselves. We're not trying to heal ourselves. We're not trying to have a bigger heart chakra or this thing. We are trying to liberate the highest consciousness within us that is liberated by the release of that Kundalini Shakti, the awakening of that Kundalini Shakti, so that it can rise through the sushumna. In this process, right, burning through whatever level of obscurity, whatever level of tension, whatever level of karma that we might have accumulated through this and some previous lifetimes, right? Because that's where liberation takes place, right? So then the ascent, right? So there is always this descent. How did we get here? God descended into and as you, created you, and then grew a body around it, right? So the descent is Shiva's consciousness, Shiva's choice, Shiva's decision to manifest. The ascent is his pathway back out of that, his own pathway back out of that. This is not your liberation we're talking about. This is God's liberation, if you want to think of it in those terms, because that's what we're really trying to do. We make it all personal. Well, at some point you start to realize it's not all that personal. And in fact, until we stop making it personal, then liberation is not possible, right? So then the important thing is that this energy is then brought to the base of the spine where this Kundalini Shakti, which has its power to manifest the physical body, the mental and emotional body, and is our spiritual core, is our spiritual body, is energized, awakened, so that it can begin to ascend. right? Otherwise, it's sleep, right? Right. Don't bother me. Next lifetime, right? Right. Once that ascent happens, okay, within tantric tradition, non-dual tantric tradition, of which one of the fundamental things that makes something non-dual tantric tradition is the focus on the psychic body, the awareness of the chakras, the awareness of the sushumna. Then as the flow is developed, as Rudi's language was really about creating this flow, right, what's happening is that we're creating this flow within us that can allow for and create the pathway for Kundalini to ascend. The energy is just the energy that's rising, right? And as that happens, it reveals all our stuff so that we can free ourselves from all our stuff, right? The traditional term is the burning of impurities. Rudi called it burning your shit, right? Okay, same difference, right? Right. So that this Kundalini Shakti, the power of creation in you, can rise back through and reconnect to its own source, which is consciousness, right? So then there is this flow, this ascent and descent, right? While it's critical that you open your chakras, right? You can only, the criticalness of open the chakras is the access to the sushumna. And the criticalness of access to the sushumna is to experience yourself as what I call the divine thread. That luminous streak of light that is the connection between us and God. And so you can think of it as little like those babushka dolls, right? Where there's a big one and a little one, et cetera, right? Right. So that we are becoming more and more aware of the different dimensions of ourselves, right? So that ultimately we recognize ourselves as this Kundalini Shakti. From that place, we are able to ascend with that, so that our experience of separated identity is dissolved. This moves through, frees us from ego, frees us from manas, from mind, right? Frees us from the experience of separation, so that we begin to recognize, I am not separate. I am not separate from God. I am not separate from my own source. I am not separate from myself, right? From there, we can be. From there, only from there can we begin to free ourselves from any sense of separation, separated identity. We begin to recognize ourselves as this individuated expression of that divine force, right? That's what's happening in the double breath, right?